Why, thank you, and good morning to you and everyone here in Hayes, America.
Last time I talked to you, it was you were still. I don't think you'd gone to China yet, because I missed the last interview we had with you in here. So you were still off to China that time.
China is always an exciting time.
By the way, this morning show interview is being brought to you by Edward Jones. So I just wanted to let everybody know, Daryl Seibel over at Edward Jones. I want to thank him for sponsoring this segment this morning. All right, let's talk about cool things happening at Fort Hays, because there's always a lot happening down there. Even in summer months, you don't think about this, but there's a lot going on. In fact, right now at Fort Hays State University, there's probably some camps going on that I don't know about, maybe you know about, but there's that big Germans from Russia thing that's happening over at the Union right now.
Right, and I was just strolling through the Union the other day, had all kinds of very interesting table displays and a lot of fun, and that's certainly a nice part of our regional history as well.
Well, it's nice that there's a place like Fort Hays State University that can host something like this. So part of it is hosted at the Union, but it's also not only a cool event, but it kind of fits into Fort Hays' model of being involved in the community, but also people can learn a lot from all of this. There's a great learning experience with all of this.
You know, we do such a great job and really doing outreach and integration with the community. It's something that's really special about Fort Hays State University. I really love that. We have over 20 outreach centers, and core to who we are as a state comprehensive regional is really about making sure our students' experiences, how they're taught, externships, internships, is all about serving the community at the same time. And that's pretty special.
You know, what's really cool is, as a person on the alumni board at Fort Hays, it's always cool for me to see people that come back for graduation that have never stepped foot on campus, and they graduate from Fort Hays from maybe one of the other, outlets or an online class, and it's really neat to see them come back and they'll say, wow, I've never been on campus. This is a really cool place.
Yeah, you know, and even our alums, as you know, who come back from 5 years ago or 50 years ago are just taken back. They gasp with, wow, this is really great how the institution has grown and developed.
I have a friend of mine who graduated from Fort Hays, and he no longer lives here, but he was back 2 weeks ago, and I took him for a tour around campus, and he hadn't been on campus for probably 3 or 4 years.
A little different.
And it's changed dramatically for him, too, and had to explain everything and what's going on. And the new housing models that are happening where they've got the living communities, that's kind of a cool thing that a lot of people from even 5-10 years ago don't think about.
Right. And the nice thing about that is it's a great retention tool so that students really make friends quicker by living together and taking classes together and integrating curriculum and having really faculty who are engaged with those students from day one, who are supporting them in more than just the teaching role, but also in helping them discover their talents and really have a very strong start at the institution. I love the learning community model.
Right, and they also have tutors there to help them if they need it for those main subjects. So that's just it's really a cool. I guess it's a cool migration not really migration, but it's a cool thing that's happening in learning these days. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, speaking of learning, there's a lot of students that go through different programs at Fort Hays, whether it's just getting a teaching degree or getting some kind of a degree in just any sciences or something like that. But a lot of people come to Fort Hays for to be an attorney.
Yes.
And so this new program that you've helped work out, or it's a cooperation with Washburn Law School. It's the LEAP program. And we do have, there is, whether people know this or not, there is a shortage of attorneys in the small communities. And that's what Fort Hays tries to do, is help out bringing people back to those small communities.
That's so important to us in serving Western Kansas and rural communities, whether it's through the attorneys, through teacher education. Something that we're doing right now is also those Noise Summer camps that we're doing, getting students excited about teaching in rural America. Our social work cohort program has been phenomenal. We've been working with Liberal, Garden, and Dodge City, where we're, back in the day when we started distance ed, our faculty had to drive, and now we had this technology explosion, so we can do really cool in distance ed. But we've also learned in rural communities that sometimes you really need to work with the people there face to face for them to stay in the communities and not go other places. And so we've been bringing cohort model to those communities so that people can work. They take one class, I think it's a 3-hour class once a week, and they can graduate in social work and stay in those communities and be hired right away.
How do partnerships, because it's not just this LEAP program with Washburn University Law School, how do partnerships like this come about? Do you all sit around in a room thinking about this, or does somebody throw it out there and see what sticks, kind of?
You know, I always think, I kind of smile because I think we seem to be really strategic, and we are strategic, but I think a lot of it happens so serendipitously with side conversations with community members. Even China, I think, really had a start that was very serendipitous. And then you follow up, you explore conversations. That's part of that innovative nature of the institution as well. So I might be out and about and somebody might make a comment and I'll follow up. But our faculty, who are really engaged and forward thinking, are also having those conversations, and people are outreaching. The whole social work cohort, I think, happened with just an awareness of our faculty, or what we're doing in nursing education, or how the Herndon Clinic was able to maximize dollars with the Scottish Rite Foundation and get out to communities to do hearing clinics. I think a lot of it is not sitting around a room, but it's about being engaged through civic engagement opportunities, conversations with neighbors, and just paying attention to really great opportunities, and then having those kind of backyard, sit around the picnic table conversations, and then following up on them.
Yeah, that is kind of cool how they evolve, and sometimes they take a couple of months, sometimes they take years. You never know.
And some of them are dead ends, and that's okay. That's part of that scientific model, right? Is just figuring out what works and what doesn't, and not being held back by what doesn't work, but seeing that what doesn't work is really a success, because we get to move on to the next idea.
You know, we talked leading into this interview about the Germans from Russia that are being on campus right now at the Union, but there's other cool things happening over the summer months at Fort Hays State University. The Noyce Summer Scholars, they have the Science and Mathematics Institute that happens, their summer camps at Fort Hays. So some good things came out of that too.
Yeah, there's two really great stories about that, and that's for children's in grade 2 through 8. So the fact that students, young people, are spending their time in summer camp. But can you imagine approaching summer and your parents saying, hey, we're going to send you to math camp? Not very exciting, is it? But when the kids get there, I mean, I'd be crying, right? No, really, was I bad or whatever? But they get there, and all of a sudden they realize that math camp also is about Ferris wheels and the constellation and robotics and DNA and crime scenes, and they have this amazing opportunity. So they really get into the science and math. But the other side of the story is that the, let's say, camp counselors are our science majors who really have some notions about what they want to do and maybe have not even considered teaching. And they get this awareness about how they can impact lives through working with children. And a lot of them think twice, and some of them change their majors into science teachers, which is important because the state of Kansas really needs science and math teachers. And if we're going to have a lot of people in the STEM fields, we have to have teachers that can inspire people to fall in love with math and science.
It's funny you talk about those things that do happen on campus. One of your own, Dr. Mark Bannister, is leaving for Boise State, and Mark and I went to high school together. And Mark and I last week were kind of reminiscing a little bit about Fort Hays State University when we were in high school. We talk about things that were happening on campus when we were in high school, and Mark's talking about all these education things, and I'm talking about wrestling camps and photography things. So, but there's so many things that do happen that capture a little bit of everybody.
Yeah, I think we have just such a great variety and such a caring community. It's really great to be part of it.
Yeah, and the other thing I think I remember too, and was the bowling alley too at one time. So
I've heard many stories about the
yeah.
bowling
You know,
alley.
we talk about, the history of Fort Hays, and we go back to all the things that people remember. And that's what a friend of mine and I were talking about when he was in town, all the things that we remembered at Fort Hays State University. And there's a lot of cool things that people can go through and bring back some of those memories. And one of them is the digital baseball collection that's now online, that was done at Forsyth Library by Elizabeth Chance, digital curation. So people can go on. We had a story about this on Hayes Post a while back. They can go on and check out some of these old pictures, not just the baseball collection, but a lot of older pictures that are online at Fort Hays State University, including stuff from the yearbook.
Yeah, I've seen more and more people on campus actually getting some of those photos, framing them and hanging them in their office. And I love those expressions of our history and our engagement throughout the years. The Forsyth librarians are a pretty special group of people. They're not, yesterday's librarian, so to speak. They're always engaging in different ways and hosting fun events. And you may have seen on Facebook, but they were just named the number 6 library in the state of Kansas. Like all of the public libraries and everyone, they were number 6. And
Wow.
that's because of the great work and how they think about library science in the U.S. these days.
Well, I was going back through that baseball collection. I was looking at that you guys were talking about, and a lot of mustaches back in the back in the 80s. And there was another picture I had on there, and I'm holding it hostage in my computer, and I've shown it to him a couple of times. It's your chief of police, Ed Howell, holding onto a fishing pole when he was like in school as a student yet too, and it was. I hold him hostage with that one. Let's see what else we've got going on. A lot of accomplishments by Fort Hays State University students, and that happens all the time. Speaking of baseball, we talked about baseball a moment ago in the pictures. Mark Eberly has a book, Kansas Baseball, 1858 to 1941. Mark, a alum, also a notable alum, Eric Norris, who was from here in Hays, or he not from here in Hays, but lived in Hays for a while. He's back east now, and he's the I guess Kansas librarian or something like that, but he has put this book into the state library association somehow. It's a notable book. So we got a couple of alums that are into baseball and doing good things statewide.
And really, I think it's a must-read book. It's not too early to start thinking about Christmas gifts.
Yeah, there you go. Another one here, Allison Railsback, Mankato Senior in agriculture education. There's Kylie Heine, and then also Toby Flores and Daniel Robinson, just to name a few. And the Toby Flores, Daniel Robinson, we had a story on Hays Post about that. It was a statue that was dedicated for Cyclone Day, and it had to do with remembering the tornado that happened in Codell. And I don't know if you remember that or not, but have you seen that statue at all?
I've not seen it, and I've seen photos of it, and it is breathtaking. I would really love to see it, but I couldn't believe that tornado struck down on that town on the same day, May 20th, 3 consecutive years. I just kept thinking of that movie Groundhog's Day. They must have thought they were waking up and reliving the same experience.
Yeah, I heard about that story too, and I couldn't believe it. May 20th, 1916, 1917, 1980, or 18, there's tornado that struck Codell the same day, 3 years in a row. And this, I guess this art design is done by a couple of Fort Hays students and faculty and was donated to them. So there's some really cool things there. Coming up, there is a lot of great things happening. You get inaugurated. Can you say it?
Yeah,
Is that correct? Say you got inaugurated? September 14th, 10 a.m., Gross Coliseum. What happens during your inauguration? Well,
there'll be a lot of fun events. And really, the focus is really on the university. I'm just a, ancillary, a side player, whatever. But there'll be a lot of fun ways to tell the story of the university. We're really excited about that. We're going to have a big cookout to celebrate Fort Hays State University. And really would love for people to come down and be a part of it. And we're really proud of the institution. That's what it's about.
Where's this being held at? In the Union grounds?
The actual ceremony will be in the Gross Memorial Coliseum, just like any convocation, or not convocation, but graduation that we have. And again, open to the public. And then we'll have a cookout in the quad, just like we do back to school. And it'll be just a fun event. And really, we want to celebrate Fort Hays State University. The ceremony is all about the board coming and putting a heavy metal around my neck to remind me of the burden and the great responsibility I have agreed to.
So that is on September 14th. Backing up a little bit, back to school picnic is August 20th, 4 to 6:30 at the Quad, and it's the same day classes begin, August 20th.
Yes. Open to the public as well. As you know, we have hundreds of tables there, and what a great way of town and gown getting together, introducing our new faculty, staff, and students to opportunities to engage in the community and community members to remember all the great things we do on Fort Hays campus as well.
As president, do you go around to classrooms and speak in a lot of classrooms during the first week or two of school? Just to maybe like as a guest speaker and talk to students?
I sometimes, but not really a whole lot. But I do a lot of walking around and handshaking and saying, hey, how are you? Because you can talk a little more personally to people in that setting than you can in front of a class.
Oh, sure. So that's happening. And then something you're experienced with here recently, a resident move-in days, 15th and 16th. And I say you and move-ins.
I know. Yeah, move-ins as well. But I really love that move-in day because we do it so well. You know, our faculty and staff drop everything. They come over. We gear up in our Fort Hays gear.
It's pretty well coordinated.
Oh, and we carry everything in. And I will carry boxes in for the new students as well. And then, of course, we put the tiger tags on it, on the cars as they pull up. So everybody will leave with a Fort Hays front license plate.
So that's cool. That's coming up, some of the great things. And then, of course, we all know about football, August 30th, 7 o'clock, Lewis Field Stadium, football, Central Missouri. And people need to go down and see the brand new scoreboard. That's pretty big. And hopefully the limestone around the scoreboard will be done by then. I talked to the coach the other day, and he thinks it'll be done like the day before or something like that.
But the scoreboard will work with or without the limestone.
It certainly will. So that's all coming up. And then we shouldn't forget about other sports, too. Men's soccer is August 31st at 7 o'clock. Anything else you want to share with us today?
No, it's always such a great day to be a Tiger in Hays America, and we sure thank all of our community members for supporting us, and it's going to be an amazing school year.
Very good. Thanks for coming in and sharing all of that with us.
My pleasure.
It's Dr. Tisa Mason, our segment here on the Eagle Morning Show. Our time now is 8:28. Local news and sports coming up in a moment.